It could be the most consequential Oval Office meeting since President Trump's clash with Ukrainian President Zelensky. Will New York City's incoming mayor Zoran Mamdani get a handshake or the cold shoulder? I'm Elizabeth Vargas, and America's News starts right now. Hello, everybody. Happy Thursday. We begin at the White House, the venue for tomorrow's big showdown meeting for the incoming mayor of America's largest city and the leader of the free world. New York Mayor-elect Zoran Mamdani has vowed to stand up to President Trump, and now he's going to Washington to finally meet the man who's called him a communist lunatic and a total nut job. It's all set to happen in the Oval Office, and if cameras are there to catch all the action, get your popcorn ready. These two political prize fighters have a history of going at it. All right, despite that adversarial history and Mamdani's near total lack of political experience, Mamdani seems unfazed at meeting face-to-face tomorrow with the most powerful man in the world.
I'm not concerned about this meeting. I view this meeting as an opportunity for me to make my case. And I'll make that case to anyone, frankly. And for me, it's not about myself. It's not about a relationship with an individual. It's about a relationship between New York City and the White House, the president, the federal administration. And I will look to make clear that my interest goes beyond any one of an individual. It's for the people that I look to represent.
Now, affordability will be the main topic tomorrow. It's the key issue that got Mamdani into Gracie Mansion and Trump back into the White House. And if Trump throws Mamdani any curveballs, the mayor-elect says being a New Yorker should prepare him for anything. But let's not forget Trump is also a former New Yorker, born in Queens, the borough in which Mamdani currently lives. Let's bring in our panel now. Chris Cillizza is a NewsNation political contributor and author of the So What newsletter on Substack. And Mick Mulvaney served as President Trump's chief of staff in his first term. He's now a NewsNation political contributor. Great to have both of you here. Mick, I'll start with you. Mamdani has said this relationship with the White House is critical to his success as mayor of New York City. But boy, as we just saw in that compilation, neither one has spared anything when talking about the other. What do you expect tomorrow?
95% of the time, I think I know what to expect. I got no clue for tomorrow. I have no idea if they're going to come out of this meeting hugging each other or if they're going to be coming to fisticuffs in the building. All I know it's going to be must-see television, which is pretty much, I'm sure, why it's happening. So I know why it's happening. I don't know what's going to happen. Donald Trump knows how to make news. He knows how to get people to tune in. He knows how to get ratings, and that's what this meeting is about.
Chris, there's reporting that for all of his public bombast, Trump actually privately admires Mamdani's political skills. They both have a lot of those same skills in common. They know how to talk really well to reach and connect with people and voters. They both won big in each of their elections on the issue of affordability.
Yeah, they're both populists. I
Right.
mean, very much so, right? I mean, from different ends of the spectrum, but and they're both New Yorkers. I know Donald Trump is a Florida guy, but look, Donald Trump spent his entire life in New York City, right? So I mean, he's a New York guy. There's a reason he's so interested in Zoran Mamdani. I'm kind of with Mick. Like, if you told me afterward that it was more cordial than everyone expected, I'd be like, that makes some sense. And if you told me it was more combative, that would make some sense. I mean, I will say, politically speaking, it's in both of their interests to have the other as a foil, right? For Mamdani, for him to look like he's fighting Donald Trump is great for New York City. For Trump, the socialist march is on the way. It's good for Trump. In a way, I'd like it if they could both acknowledge that they're good for each other, but they probably won't. But ultimately, politically, they are.
Yeah, I wouldn't hold my breath on that. It is going to be must-see TV. We'll be talking about it tomorrow night. All right, another story. Mick, the president today is calling for executing members of Congress for posting this video that's gone seriously viral, featuring several Democratic members of Congress telling our soldiers currently serving in the military that they have a legal obligation. They can refuse an illegal order that they are given. Trump posted this morning, these congressmen are engaging in seditious behavior punishable by death. He went on to say they should be arrested and put on trial. The press secretary did try and walk that back in her briefing this afternoon. The congressman in one of the video is Jason Crow, who was on this show last night. He's a former Army Ranger and paratrooper. He explained to me why he made this video. Take a listen. But to be clear, Congressman, you're not saying President Trump has already given any illegal orders, are you?
We're not talking about specific orders. We're talking about the general obligation of uniformed service personnel to follow the Constitution and follow the law and the Geneva Conventions.
I pressed him several times. He could come up with no illegal order that he thinks President Trump has given.
So why put the video out? That's what I don't get. Look, I think the president is over the top on this line about it.
So does Lindsey Graham.
Technically, that is the penalty for seditious behavior, for treason. Okay, so that's factual, and so is the comment that the Democrats representatives made, which is you don't have to follow illegal orders. That's factual. So if everybody's saying something factual, why are they saying it? That's what I don't understand, especially if the Democrats don't think there's an illegal order. Every member of the armed forces knows what they were just told in these videos. So why do it? I mean, clearly there was a reason, and I just don't understand what's going on here. I think both sides need to sort of calm down.
Chris, what do you make of it? Because with Lindsey Graham, who is a former military lawyer, has called the comments in the video despicable, but he also said what Mick just said, that Trump's comments were over the top.
I mean, I feel like I'm nearing voting for Mick for president whenever he runs because I agree with him so much of the time. I mean, yeah, look, it is ridiculous and deeply irresponsible for the president of the United States, I don't care what party they are, I don't care what their last name is or their first name, to say, even in semi-jest, who knows, to say we need to execute members of Congress. Like, I feel like that's a line that we should all be okay saying. I'm with Mick, though, again, in my future campaign managing Mick's presidential campaign, in that, like, I'm not sure why the video was made in the first place. It's like, yes, of course it is true you don't have to, you should not follow an illegal order. You're not obligated to follow an illegal order. But there's nothing in the video that says Donald Trump has made an illegal order. So it seems to me they were trying to score political points. The Democrats. Trump responded with, his usual bazooka when something less is probably necessary. Yeah. And it depresses me about politics, candidly. It's kind of like there's really no reason to be talking about this. Donald Trump takes everything and turns it up to 11, and he takes every piece of bait that Democrats throw out there. I wish Democrats hadn't done it, and I really wish he hadn't responded that way.
Finally, I've got to get you both to weigh in on this story with Texas Democratic Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett. She was speaking on the floor of the House, and she listed a bunch of Republicans that she accused of taking money from Jeffrey Epstein. Well, at least in one case, it turns out it was a different Jeffrey Epstein, not the convicted pedophile or convicted sex offender that had made this campaign contribution. She was confronted with that by Lee Zeldin, who said, sorry, you've got this wrong. She went on CNN last night. We thought she was going to apologize for getting it wrong. Take a listen to what she said on the floor and then what she said in her own defense. Chris, she was clearly trying to mislead people that it was the convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein who contributed to Lee Zeldin's campaign.
It's so appalling. It is so ridiculous for her to try to claim, well, I mean, I just said a Jeffrey Epstein, not the Jeffrey Epstein. Who do you think people thought it was? Did they think it was the doctor guy that no one's ever heard of, or the incredibly famous sex offender?
And nor would anybody care if it was the doctor guy that no one's ever heard of.
It is the fact that she agreed to go on a CNN with Caitlin Collins to basically say, like, well, technically I wasn't wrong. If you didn't know it was the Jeffrey Epstein, don't go on the House floor and make the clear insinuation everyone is going to make. I don't understand why we can't say, you know what? I wanted to score political points. I made a mistake. I screwed up. I'll try not to do it again. We can never do that anymore.
Yeah, Mick, you get the last word.
Next time, we're going to have to find something that Chris and I disagree on, because we're on the
Yeah.
same page on this. But this is what I will point out, is that I don't know this district for Jasmine Crockett, but I'm pretty comfortable saying there's like an 82% chance she's going to get reelected, because that's just how it works in
She's
that.
very popular in her district.
We get the government that we deserve. And if you're watching this tonight, you look at this person and go, how could that person get elected to Congress? Not only did they get elected to Congress, they're going to get reelected, because that's the way the system
Yeah,
works.
it just would be great to everybody maybe take a breath, beat before you go on the
Well, and have some
House
accountability.
floor
Have the
and say
voters
something.
actually say, you know what?
And if you say something wrong, just say,
Yeah.
I screwed up, I'm sorry.
I've screwed up 3 times in this interview, so Liz only did it twice.
All right, Mick Mulvaney.
I'm sorry for Mick.
Thank you to you both for your gentlemanly manners. I really appreciate it. All right, to Capitol Hill now, where a Florida House Democrat is fighting back against calls to resign after the Justice Department charged her with stealing $5 million in federal relief funds. Congresswoman Sheila Sherflius McCormick is accused of taking those millions in FEMA funds awarded to a healthcare company that she ran during the COVID pandemic, and then using it for her 2021 campaign. Today, after calls to step down, she remained defiant, calling her indictment unjust and a distraction from more important issues.
Well, it's an unjust indictment, and it seems like these intimidation tactics have been pervasive. We spent all week seeing different members getting censured, all in hopes of intimidating and kind of distracting from the Epstein files. And I look forward to my day in court so I can prove myself and actually state the truth.
Let's go right now to NewsNation's Joe Khalil, live for us on Capitol Hill. Joe, innocent until proven guilty, absolutely. But if the Congresswoman won't step aside, one of her Republican colleagues says he's going to try and expel her.
Yeah, I mean, let's take a step back, Elizabeth. This has been a really crazy week here on Capitol Hill, and if that happens this week, we would be talking about 3 different members of Congress who have all had some kind of formal vote to condemn them, to censure them, or in this case, potentially even remove her from her position. And of all 3, Congresswoman Sheila McCormick, she is facing the most serious of all of those accusations, because she's facing actual federal criminal charges now. You laid out the case against her. The Department of Justice effectively alleges that back in 2021, during the pandemic, she got FEMA grants for her company, which was a medical-related company and dealing with vaccinations. But the DOJ alleges that they overpaid her in this grant, some to the tune of $5 million. And rather than marking that or returning it, what she is alleged to have done, she and her brother, is funnel that money illegally to personal things, to extravagant things in her own personal life, and also to fund a lot of her campaign. She was not a member of Congress at the time, so it was her first campaign for Congress, and she allegedly used a lot of those funds for that, which very clearly would be illegal if proven. This is a bit more of what she had to say in her own defense.
If this is what Congress is becoming, where they're always trying to intimidate you, scare tactics, especially attacking minorities, black and brown people, then we're going to have to keep fighting for the district. They didn't elect me, it was my district, and so we'll keep fighting for the people and keep working like we're doing now until they get what they need. So we're here for the people. So the only people who elected me should make that decision.
Congresswoman Sherflius McCormick, not the only one that is facing charges. We mentioned her brother, but also their tax attorney is facing a charge in relation to this for allegedly filing a false tax return on her behalf. U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi also weighing in today in a statement. She says that using disaster relief funds for self-enrichment is a particularly selfish, cynical crime. No one is above the law, least of all powerful people who rob taxpayers for personal gain. We will follow the facts in this case and deliver justice. And Elizabeth, we're also hearing from the Democratic side of the aisle. Democratic House Leader Hakeem Jeffries effectively said, you know, she has served honorably for the last couple of years, that everyone's innocent until proven guilty. However, they are making the decision to remove her from the head of a subcommittee that she serves on as the top-ranking Democrat on it. She will no longer be in that position until this ethics committee investigation finishes, and we will see what happens with the vote. We know the Republican who was supposed to move this vote forward has delayed that, he says, so he can give her an opportunity to resign on her own. But we will see, obviously, where this goes on the House floor soon.
All right. Joe Khalil, thank you so much, live on Capitol Hill. Coming up for us, We just received frame-by-frame images taken of that doomed UPS plane moments before it crashed in Louisville, Kentucky, showing the engine falling off the wing. What the investigation into the fatal crash is now revealing about metal fatigue. And then it's Jussie Smollett 2.0. A former congressional aide is accused of staging a political hate crime by making deep cuts into her skin and writing words about Trump on her body. The bizarre story straight ahead. We're learning terrifying new information about that deadly UPS cargo jet crash in Kentucky earlier this month. According to a preliminary report by the National Transportation Safety Board, safety experts found fatigue cracks in the plane's left wing engine mount. Those cracks are essentially, they develop from wear and tear. Well, newly released pictures show the fiery progression of the plane's engine falling off just as it was taking off. The MD-11 jet was just 30 feet off the ground when the crash occurred in the Louisville airport. 3 pilots on board were killed and 11 other people were killed on the ground. The 34-year-old MD-11 had been last examined in October of 2021. UPS said it has grounded its fleet of MD-11s and is using other aircraft during the busy holiday season. Other different cargo airplane companies are also grounding their MD-11s. Well, the start of the holiday season, travel season, is just days away, with the busiest travel week of the year kicking off next week as people fly home for Thanksgiving. More than 6 million people are expected to fly, up 2% from last year. And Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy is making a call tonight to keep it classy in the air. No more bad behavior, he says, by unruly passengers. You know, the kind we've all seen time and time again. Okay, I love it. They set that to that ominous music. But when Transportation Secretary Duffy calls for the golden age of travel to come back, like the days of our grandparents, he doesn't mean too friendly, like this couple. The epidemic of unruliness in the air has, in fact, skyrocketed. The number of unruly passenger events has doubled since before the pandemic, with a 400% increase in outbursts on planes since 2019. 1 in 5 flight attendants reports experiencing physical altercations on the job. All unacceptable, says Duffy, who's encouraging air travelers to say please and thank you to airport staff, help out older flyers first and pregnant women with their bags, keep control of your kids, and please dress respectfully for the flight. But is his message tone deaf? Aren't there bigger issues facing the air travel industry right now, like flight delays and air traffic control shortages and antiquated equipment in the air traffic control towers like circa 1975? Even though the government shutdown is over, travel delays are not. Right now, at this hour, Newark Liberty International Airport is under a ground delay due to those staffing shortages in air traffic control. For more on all this, we're joined by Clint Henderson, managing editor for The Points Guy, and Rachel Wagner, an etiquette expert. Clint, is this what the transportation... listen, I'm all for the golden age of travel. I don't think I was ever alive to see it, to be honest. But what do you make of this?
So the golden age of travel, there was very few people traveling. They had a lot of space on the planes. Planes weren't crowded. It was also very expensive, so it was out of reach for most Americans. So we're definitely not going back to the golden age of travel. I think one thing they could do to help would be, you know, not completely sell off the planes. But it's interesting.
Oversell. I mean, routinely now.
Exactly.
You know, I'm sorry, we've got, 289 people for a 70-seat flight.
Yeah, no. I think it's really interesting to me that they're calling for civility at the same time we're going backwards on passenger rights. So
what do you mean by that?
Well, the Trump administration just threw out a rule that had been proposed by the Biden administration that would have compensated passengers for long delays and cancellations. And so I think there's a sort of collective frustration among passengers who are paying more for less space in general. And so I don't think we're going back to the golden age of travel, but I do appreciate the message from Duffy and the White House saying that we need to be respectful. I think use common sense is, the golden rule applies here too. Use common sense, don't dress like a total slob, be nice to people. I mean, these are all good messages, but it would be nice to have some very robust passenger rights as well.
Right, well, maybe those rules also apply to just life in general. Rachel, flying is often very frustrating. We've seen and we've been playing these videos and pictures of unruly passengers wearing hot pants and halter tops, going barefoot on the airplanes. I'm talking about you, RFK Jr. What do you make of this? Like, I'm always shocked when I see somebody going barefoot on the airplane.
Well, we all know that our society has become much more casual, Elizabeth, than it was even 10 years ago. And people just take that casualness wherever they go and really don't put a lot of thinking into how they're choosing their attire for what their activity or event is. And the same, too, I see people in inappropriate attire, like what were they thinking, showing too much skin, that type of thing as well.
But Rachel, if you have to tell people how to dress and how to behave, are they really going to follow these new guidelines from the Transportation Secretary?
People tend to do what they see other people doing versus thinking, well, do I have to follow that rule? The airlines want us to dress respectfully. Most airlines have that in their general guidelines on their websites, but there's no way they can specify what specific attire to wear. And it really, unfortunately, some people just don't have that common sense. And I think when I walk into a plane, I'm often in, the economy class, but I have to walk through first class to get there. And oftentimes, if I glance at how people are dressed in first class, not always, but they're generally dressed, at least business attire, nice jeans, that type of thing. They're not dressing sloppily. So I think, I want to dress how I want to maybe someday have a seat in that first class section.
Right. Clint, listen, there's part of this is a safety thing, too. You and I were discussing in the commercial break. I did a couple of big investigations and have covered many, many airplane crashes. I don't ever wear flip-flops on an airplane, not because I don't wear flip-flops, but because if something happens, that's the worst thing to be wearing when I have to get out in an emergency evacuation. Wear tennis shoes or wear flat shoes of some kind, wear jeans or something, that you can move around easily in and be comfortable in for a long period of time. This isn't just a matter of etiquette, it's a matter of also safety.
Yeah, in fact, high heels can puncture the emergency evacuation slide.
Right.
So you got to consider all these things. And also, we see the video now of people bringing their luggage with them on the escape ramps.
Right.
It's just really dangerous, and people are not really thinking. And so, we have to have a return to civility, but it would also help if we had friendlier skies in general.
And if we stopped overselling and overpacking these airplanes.
Absolutely.
And all the passengers weren't overpacking those overhead bins.
And don't get drunk at the airport.
Yeah, maybe don't get wasted before you get in line and then lose your cool because somebody's, done something to offend you. Rachel Wagner, I didn't even know there was such a thing as an etiquette coach. It's great to meet you. I think we need to have you everywhere these days because guess what? A little kindness, a please and a thank you, not, going barefoot, can get you a long way. Clint Henderson.
Absolutely.
Thank you both so much. Really appreciate it. Coming up for us, it has been nearly 62 years since JFK was assassinated, and now a CIA whistleblower says the agency bragged about covering up what they knew about his killer. Axios senior reporter Mark Caputo has the scoop, and he joins me live next. This Saturday will be the 62nd anniversary of President John F. Kennedy's assassination. And all these years later, new information is emerging about the man who shot and killed the president. A CIA whistleblower has just come forward to say he saw secret documents in which the CIA bragged about misleading members of Congress who investigated the assassination. According to an Axios scoop from our friend Mark Caputo, a former CIA State Department historian, says he stumbled upon a shocking document 16 years ago. In it, he says the CIA official not only brags about misleading investigators in 1978, He also references thousands of photographs taken of Lee Harvey Oswald in Mexico City before the assassination. He even says he saw a film canister labeled Oswald in Mexico. Now, there have long been questions about what the CIA knew about Oswald and how long the spy agency had been tracking him. This new revelation is sure to spark more. Mark Caputo joins us now. Mark, congrats on this scoop. It's utterly fascinating. To set the scene, there were 3 big official investigations into the JFK assassination. The first was the Warren Commission in 1963. The second was the House Select Committee investigation in 1978. And this document is about that investigation. What does it say?
Well, we don't quite know what it says. We need to rely on the memory of Thomas Percy, the joint CIA State Department historian at the time in 2009, who was researching something that a lot of people don't know about. It's called the Foreign Relations of the United States. It's been produced since the time of Lincoln, that chronicles the official U.S. policy. And he was researching Latin America because Percy's a Latin America expert. And he ordered up a file, a document, better said a box, on a 1968 massacre in Mexico City, or in Mexico. And mistakenly included in that box was this file that had a 40 to 50 page Inspector General report from the CIA that included the document that you just referenced from a CIA officer who bragged in this Inspector General's report that the House Select Committee was investigating us and it could have damaged our reputation, but we tricked the chief counsel, the lead counsel, by giving him documents and a book and volumes that didn't really tell him anything, and then they laughed about how incurious he was and sort of backslapped themselves over getting away with it by misleading the House Select Committee. Not the only time the House Select Committee was misled by the CIA. There's a few other examples.
Yeah.
The counsel, Blakey, Robert Blakey, got very angry years later after he saw other documents showing it. But it really points to how the CIA consistently over the years covered up, misled Congress about what they knew about Lee Harvey Oswald and when they knew it.
He also said, let's talk about those canisters of film that were labeled Oswald in Mexico. The CIA has denied that it has any photos of Oswald in Mexico. While he was in Mexico City, remember, he visited the Cuban and the Soviet embassies shortly before the assassination.
Correct. Now, he didn't open this canister and didn't know what it was. A slight correction to the intro you had is he said he saw the reference to these 4 Hasselblad cameras. A Hasselblad is a high-end camera, and 2,300 photographs in Mexico City, but it didn't specify that those photographs specifically were of Oswald. At the time, the CIA did say that, oh, for some reason, though Oswald was in Mexico City and though we have all this great spy equipment, the cameras apparently weren't working that day and they didn't have photographs of them.
But why have
the
a film
suggestion,
canister?
however, is maybe they did.
Why have a film canister that says Oswald in Mexico?
Great question. I mean, there's a number of things. Not in this report that we did for Axios, but we did in another one. What's really sort of remarkable is a character named George Joanides, who was a CIA officer who was involved in the JFK-related matters, or was an active officer at the time that JFK was killed. He was a Miami agent. And years later, with this House Select Committee that we're talking about in 1978 and 1979, he was brought back to be the liaison with the House Select Committee.
Right.
And they lied to the House Select Committee and said that this guy had nothing to do with JFK, didn't know anything about it, and that just patently wasn't true. And that was one of the instances that Blakey had said was really left a bad taste in his mouth when he realized he'd been hoodwinked.
So bottom line, you know, we've got like 10 seconds left. I'm just curious,
Sorry.
was there, no, it's all so fascinating, but was there anything that he saw in this document that would change what we believe happened on that day nearly 62 years ago?
Well, I don't really know what we believe happened. I mean, the official narrative is that Lee Harvey Oswald was a lone gunman, but there's a lot of evidence to suggest that maybe that's not the case, and the CIA, they're not covering up now. They are releasing documents, to be very clear, did do so much covering up and so much obfuscation and misleading that it rationally leads a lot of people to believe that
What are you hiding?
maybe the official narrative isn't true.
Yeah, when as we know from any parent knows who has kids, when you're trying really hard to hide something, to cover something up, to not release something, that means something's there. Mark Caputo, fascinating. Thanks so much for joining us tonight. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Elizabeth.
All
Appreciate
right.
it.
Coming up for us, back in July, police were called to a horrific scene in New Jersey. They found a former Capitol Hill staffer. She was zip-tied. She had cuts all over her body, and the words Trump whore were written on her stomach. It was a shocking political hate crime, or was it? Find out next why prosecutors now say that whole thing was staged. There is no doubt that we are in a period of intense political violence. The President of the United States has survived 2 assassination attempts. Then you have the murders of Democratic Minnesota lawmaker Melissa Hortman and her husband, the Charlie Kirk assassination, the attempted murder of Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro, and Nancy Pelosi's husband, hospitalized after being attacked by a man who broke into their home, a man angry with then Speaker Pelosi. So if you work in politics or talk about politics for a living, odds are you might be worried about your safety at times. That's why this next story is not just bizarre, it's maddening. A former staffer of Republican Jeff Van Drew has been charged with faking a violent political attack on herself. That person is 26-year-old Natalie Green. On July 23rd, a call was made to 911 by a female friend of Natalie's. She claimed they had been attacked by 3 men while walking along a trail in New Jersey. She claimed the attack was politically motivated because of Natalie's work for the congressman. Police got to the scene and found Natalie zip-tied with cuts to her face and to her body, and written across her stomach were the words Trump whore. It doesn't end there. Natalie Green also claimed that the attackers struck her across her face and head and used sharp objects to cut deep into her skin. This photo on the screen shows the alleged cuts she received, which were photographed by police at the hospital. Now, in a twist, a plot twist that would make Jussie Smollett blush, federal prosecutors say it was all staged. In fact, a so-called scarification artist had been paid $500 to make those cuts earlier that day. Scarification or scarification is the deliberate cutting, burning, and branding of the skin. It's sort of like tattooing, but with a lot more mutilation and less ink. Prosecutors know all this because they visit the scarification artist's studio, where they were handed a consent form that Green had signed that day, asking for the cuts to be made. This next photo on your screen was taken at that artist's studio shortly after the cuts had been made, all planned, all consensual, all paid for. Zip ties and duct tape were also found in Natalie's car, and she had internet searches for, quote, zip ties near me. Joining us now is NewsNation legal contributor Jesse Weber. He's also the host of the Sidebar podcast. Jesse, this story is so bizarre. It's astonishing.
It's one of those things where you look at it and you say, this has to be a real attack. Look at these mutilation scars. Somebody had to do this to her. But if it wasn't for the ample amount of evidence that prosecutors have, Elizabeth, you wouldn't believe it. And yes, you mentioned the receipt at the studio. You mentioned the zip ties in the scar. You mentioned the Google search by this co-conspirator who, by the way, I have to imagine is cooperating with authorities right now. They have a plethora of evidence to establish these charges, and it's pretty straightforward. It's, did she make a false statement to a federal law enforcement officer, FBI agent, and did she agree, the conspiracy angle, did she agree with somebody else to do this? And these are not difficult charges to prove, particularly when you have this amount of evidence. What I can't tell you right now, same thing I can't tell you with the Jussie Smollett case, if these allegations are true, is the why. I cannot understand what the motivation was for somebody to do this to themselves.
Well, obviously, there's got to be something wrong for somebody to do this. And the statement that was given out by the congressman, Jeff Van Drew, his office, they reference, we hope she gets the help she needs. She had left the office and was no longer working there. But, you know, when I read about this, Jess, the first thing I thought was Jussie Smollett. It's almost identical, except this young woman appears to have gone even further by going to this scarification artist to actually get herself cut or make it look really bad.
It's a great point, and I have to wonder, why did law enforcement look into this? Maybe a bit skeptical at first because of how elaborate this was. You're talking about an elaborate, complex attack on a trail. And remember, Jussie Smollett claimed that he was a victim of a racist attack in the middle of Chicago. I always wondered whether or not that first perked their ears up and said, something just doesn't sit right about this. And to be able to carry this out and not be caught is a bit strange. But to see this all, what I have to say, I've seen this many times, an elaborate alleged scheme, right? So many different aspects of it. But my gosh, how sloppy is it in the end to think about all of the pieces of evidence that may be tying back against her?
You really think someone's not going to find out you were at that scarification studio and that there isn't a receipt with your credit card payment or whatever you used to pay?
And look, all the statements she allegedly made to law enforcement, you have to imagine those were recorded, those were documented. Again, I go back to the idea is this seems like a pretty straightforward case, just one of the more bizarre ones that I've seen in quite some time.
She could face a pretty hefty prison fine, but I guess the worst part about this is this comes at a time, Jesse, when we have terrible levels of political violence in this country, and she went to great lengths, as did allegedly Jussie Smollett, to make this look political by writing Trump whore on her own body, according to prosecutors.
Yeah, real quick, not only does she allegedly waste the time and the resources of law enforcement and take them away from real crimes, but this does a disservice to real victims of violent crime and those who are also victims of political crimes.
Right. All right, Jesse Weber, great to talk to you. Thank you so much.
Thank
All right, coming up for us, President Trump is accusing several Democratic lawmakers of seditious behavior punishable by death. What does Chris Cuomo have to say about it? Well, he joins me live next to discuss. We need your help to honor the incredible women who make a difference in your community. 125 extraordinary women from across the country will be selected as finalists for Next Star's Remarkable Women contest. To nominate the remarkable woman changing your community today, go to newsnationnow.com and search Remarkable Women, or just scan the QR code that is right there on your screen. Chris Cuomo joins me now. Chris, what do you make of our lead story that I was talking to Mick and Chris Cillizza about this? And I talked to Jason Crow about it last night, actually. President Trump very angry and tweeting or posting or social truthing, whatever we call it, about these congressmen who are all veterans who made this video urging troops to reject illegal orders. He's accusing them of sedition and saying it's punishable by death.
Every body is angry. That is the reach emotion for the nation right now. The plan has worked. Whosever plan it was to make outrage the currency, the coin of the realm, they've won. I'll tell you, this was one of, I'm not a hyperbolic guy. This was one of the worst moments I've ever had in my career. And that's as someone who's been shot at a lot and blown up, okay? When this guy asked a straight question, and it was a straight question. It was an obvious, straight question. Just to be clear, does the president want members of Congress executed? And it was a serious question. And the nonchalance, I know Levitt is only like 28 years old or whatever she is, precocious, good at her job, but maybe she just doesn't have the life experience to understand how devastating a suggestion that is. And for her to spend one word before qualifying maybe, right? No, but as I'm writing tonight, it's like a scene in a movie, I don't care, I'll just say this twice, where you and we have a dog, and the dog does something in the house. And you're like, oh, I can't take it anymore. And I'm like, watching your reaction, and I say, yeah, Liz, we should just kill it. And there's an awkward silence, and then we both break out laughing. Because it's absurd. The absurdity is gone from us.
Yeah.
That was a real conversation. Hey, do you think He really wants to execute members of Congress? No, but, you know, what they did really needs to be punished. Who would have ever imagined? Who would have ever imagined? You wouldn't play it out as a hypothetical in journalism class.
Yeah.
It's too absurd. It's too stupid.
Yeah.
But here we are.
Here we
I'm
are.
sorry to take your time and extend your night, but thank you.
took
You
your
were wearing
time.
the right color.
you took
You're wearing
your
the
time.
right color.
I'm in mourning. I'm in mourning for all of us who are terminally angry.
You should be. You should
All
be.
right.